Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me today in this live class on a very important subject, the rules of eating right, proper food combining, and of course, to improve your digestion, which improves your absorption, which improves your overall health. Every single patient that I have to cover food combining. Maybe I will have my staff send this video out as a prerequisite that you need to watch it before you do an appointment with me so I can save 15 minutes of the appointment covering these same subjects. So when the clients come to me, they have gas, they have bloating, they have indigestion. Almost everybody, they can't digest this, they can't eat this. They're all complaining about digestive problems. Very few people have no digestive problems. Now, there's plenty of people that have digestive weakness and don't see it as a problem, or they're just so used to being constipated their whole life, they don't see it as a problem. But in fact, everybody really has digestive issues. Um, and, people who get a lot of gas and bloating, for example, one of the biggest signs of poor digestion is gas and bloating. They always try so many. They think they have candida. They're on YouTube, and then they see gas and bloating must be candida. So they do candida cleanses. They do parasite cleanses. They do all these things. Oh, and they take digestive enzymes a lot, which really isn't a good idea because that's enzyme replacement therapy, just like hormone replacement therapy. You're giving your body something that it should be making. So the more you give it to your body, the less your body's going to make it, and the more dependent you're going to get on it, just like melatonin or estrogen. These are all types of replacement therapy. You're not fixing anything. You're just, giving your body what it's not doing. And that's what you're doing when you take digestive enzymes. So you're not, even though they can give you kind of an immediate effect. Now, of course, if you have no pancreas, you had pancreatitis, or you had pancreas cancer, then of course you have to take your digestive enzymes. But it's not a solution. So people try all these different things, sometimes for years and years, their whole life. And then they do an appointment with me and they find out the whole problem was food combining. So you're going to learn that a lot of things that we're doing are poor food combining. These are what we call traditional food combining rules. I mean, they've been around for thousands of years. Go to a Chinese herbalist, he's going to tell you the same thing. Hippocrates spoke extensively about food combining. And of course, he got his information from Ayurveda, and Ayurveda has great detail on exactly what foods go together and when to eat. It's quite extensive, and it's a whole science in itself beyond the scope of today's little class. But just the basic rules that I give you today could change your digestion, possibly even help many people lose weight and have more energy, because when you have poor digestion, poor nutrition, you tend to eat more, crave more, then you can put on weight. And then if, then you don't not absorbing nutrients, you don't have as much energy. So you just fix these little food combining follow these food combining rules. These are really undebatable. I mean, it's not like my opinion or something. This is the ancient knowledge 101. Chinese ancient knowledge, Indian ancient knowledge, Hippocrates ancient knowledge. Everybody seems to know about these, but people who just get all their information from YouTube, they're the ones who get confused. A lot of actually people like, I get Hispanics from Mexico, and they lived in the United States most of their lives. They're making all these food combining mistakes, but their mother, she's following them. Same in India, the young people making all these mistakes, but their parents, they just know them. They're traditional. They're in their culture. They've been raised this way. To know these basic rules, that they're just such common sense to even just a couple generations back. For many cultures, just one generation back. It's all been forgotten thanks to all of the misleading information we see online. So let's get started with the number one, which I tell everybody: fruit should be eaten alone at all times. Fruit digests very quickly, can ferment if eaten with other heavier foods. Never combine fruit with grains and bread. Like, don't put fruit on your oatmeal. Never do it with dairy, like fruit in your yogurt. Never with meat. Oh my God, this is just the first big thing. And your best time for fruit is morning, empty stomach, between meals. Now, there are a few exceptions. You can have a little bit of dates, a little bit of figs in your salad and things like that. And technically, avocado is a fruit and it can hang out with the veggies. So there are a bunch of exceptions. But overall, fruit on empty stomach, and don't mix different fruits together. Don't have a sweet fruit with a sour fruit. Just have one fruit at a time. Just eat some apples, eat some grapes, eat some, always empty stomach. Okay. This is really rule number one. Number two, don't be snacking on anything pretty much except fruit or maybe some dairy, like a glass of milk or something like that. But, you can't be snacking on nuts, and which everybody in North America seems to do. Europeans don't seem to do that. They're just having their croissants and their patisseries and their coffee. But, Americans are snacking on nuts all day long, thinking it's the best thing in the world because nuts got magnesium and they saw it on YouTube. Well, it's wrecking your digestion, using up all of your digestive capacity. I mean, your bile, your enzymes, and everything. The nuts are almost a complete food. So you're having these little mini complete meals all the time, and then when it comes time for the real meal, you don't have the capacity to have it. So avoid snacking on grazing multiple meals. There used to be that bad information out there, like have 5 meals a day. These people never studied anatomy. Next, don't mix milk with other food. Milk is incompatible with most foods, particularly meat and fish and salty foods and sour foods, and fruit and milk is a really bad combination. You notice this, fruit and vegetables don't go together. And this is one of the reasons why these smoothies that people do are a disaster. Doesn't matter what people put in their smoothie, I just tell them to stop it right away. I don't even bother really asking what's in it anymore. I mean, if they're doing some fruit juice like in the morning on empty stomach, okay. They're doing some carrot juice with some ginger, okay, fine. You can have vegetable juice, maybe a little fruit unsweetened fruit juice, both on empty stomach, fine. But when you start putting fruit, vegetables, goji berries, coconut oil, mushrooms, everything, and protein powder in a big blender and blend it up, you've just broken every food combining combination there is. So milk always separate. Now, of course, there's always a few exceptions, like milk and dates go really good together. You can blend the dates up there. And of course, many herbs can go with milk to help you digest it: cinnamon, turmeric, cardamom. So the next one is avoiding proteins with starches. Well, what's that? That's the old meat and potatoes. The potato is the starch and the meat is the meat. I mean, so that's the protein, we should say. So, you can have like potato vegetable soup for dinner. And you can have maybe your animal protein and vegetables, chicken or whatever you're having, and vegetables, but you don't have the starch and the protein together. In other words, the meat and potato. You try not to have, of course, even a bean and cheese isn't such a good idea, even though they're having a little bit of cheese is okay. It's only when the things become like equal in quantity, that's where they're neutralizing each other. Say you have a big bean burrito, a little Parmesan on top, maybe no problem. But this is a starch because it requires different digestive enzymes to break it down, and particularly when you mix them all up together. But there are, of course, exceptions like the Indian dal and rice, because they kind of add spices to it. So if you add spice like cumin, ginger, and black pepper, this can help you to digest it. And then, of course, there's the melon. Always eat them alone or leave them alone. The old saying goes, melon is one of these foods that just doesn't mix with anything, not even other fruits. And then, of course, don't do what's called the double protein. That's where you have meat and eggs, cheese and meat and fish and milk. These are all called double proteins. It's just way too heavy. If you're going to have your eggs, just have your eggs with some grain. Okay, you're gonna have some meat, have your meat without, some cheese. And for some reason in Ayurveda, they really hate fish and milk. Well, I kind of know the reason why, but I didn't at one time. Milk is sweet and cooling, and fish is warming and salty, and they're just the two opposites. Is what's always it's either two opposites or too much of the same thing. And of course, another big mistake we hear in the United States and is yogurt and fruit, and this has got its own category of a no. And Hippocrates spoke about it because I have read Hippocrates, and this is maybe considered one of the worst. Hippocrates says the yogurt and sour fruit is the worst. So that's kind of like the mixing the baking soda with the vinegar together. It all bubbles up and ferments, and you get this result. So it doesn't even have to really be sour fruit. It could just be yogurt and any fruit. And this is fermentation creates toxins in the body, or as Ayurveda calls it, ama, and this ultimately weakens your digestion. Now, remember, if you're doing all these poor food combining, maybe even your whole life, then you said, well, then you start going down this slippery slope. Oh, I can't eat bread. Oh, I can't eat dairy. Oh, I can't eat this. And you keep blaming all these foods. And it's really not the foods, it's your own digestion. And the problem with your own digestion is you ruined it by breaking all these known rules. And a lot of issues can come from combining poor food, combining skin problems, rashes, of course, candida, yeast overgrowth, and all these things can, and just weaker digestion. The digestion gets weaker and weaker, and you're not able to eat as many foods anymore. And, just like a psychologist said to me one time, you're like a psychologist. And I go, what do you mean? Everybody in psychology, they always try to blame their spouse or blame somebody else, but the problem is really themselves, and they need to look at themselves. It's just the same, right? Everybody tries to blame the bread, blame dairy's bad, bread's bad, gluten's bad. I hear it every day. I have testimonials from people who said, I thought I was celiac my whole life, and now I'm eating bread, no problem. Because they created the problem, and it was because they broke all these known ancient food combining rules that they're just there. Okay, anyway, beans go good with vegetables and spices. They're hard to digest kind of on your own. Beans need spices. You just can't have beans by themselves. They're kind of heavy. So, ginger, cumin, black pepper, and you shouldn't have a double protein with your beans, like more dairy and more eggs, like huevos rancheros. Delicious. I can't say that I don't break these rules sometimes. I'm just telling you what they are. But, the more you're aware of them, the more you broke them. I also have herbs. I can go home and take some herbs to counter it. So, the more you don't follow the rules, the more you don't eat what you should be eating for your constitution or body type or prakriti, the more you got to take herbs to help your digestion. Now, of course, it's another subject I spoke on many times. But anybody come to me with big digestive problems, of course, I'm going to fix all their bad eating habits first, and then I'm going to give them herbs. And then, of course, I'm going to give them a diet that's suitable for their own constitution or the capacity of their own digestive system. Everybody's different in Ayurveda with Vata, Pitta, Kapha in different combinations. So if you're Vata, I'll give you a Vata diet. If you're Pitta, I'll give you a Pitta diet. If you're Kapha, I'll give you a Kapha diet. So first I change your diet to fit you, which usually is the food you like anyway. You're just eating foods that you thought were good because you read about it somewhere. Everybody does the same thing. So these are three things I do. I give you the right food for your body, just like I give cat food to cats and the dog food to dogs, and et cetera. I don't mix them up. Shouldn't be eating the same thing. And then I teach them the food combining rules like we're covering here. And then I give them herbs to help with the gas, the bloating, and the constipation. And this combination is like fast. Within a week, no more gas, no more bloating, no more constipation. But they have to learn these rules. And you shouldn't, we'll keep going. There's more. I got a big list. No having raw and cooked foods together. They shouldn't be combined, raw foods are, digest faster, and you shouldn't mix them together. Just like you shouldn't have hot food and a cold food together. You shouldn't have a raw salad with a hot meal. And you got to understand, raw vegetables are very hard to digest, and for the vata uh, type of person, they just can't digest them. So we just don't give them raw foods. We give them all warm, cooked, soft foods. People have to understand that warm, cooked, soft foods are much easier to digest than hard, cold, dry vegetables like salad. Obviously, carrot soup is easier to digest than raw carrots. You know, so you should just have one kind of concentrated food at a time, like a protein. That's your main food. We're going to talk about the orders, and of course, another big mistake they'd mostly do down in the South, and that's never have any cold beverages with the meals. I mean, that's the rule. I would say never have any cold beverages at all. You should always sip like a warm water or warm tea, like a ginger tea or a cumin tea, because cold drinks, cold food, cold water before, during, or after a meal just snuffs out your digestive system. And you should always, now there is so many of these rules, you should always eat sitting down, never eat standing. Ayurveda says he who eats standing lives shorter, dies early or something like that. So you should eat standing. You should chew slowly. I remember one Ayurvedic teacher, he had us all sitting around, all his students, in the 80s. And he made us put our fork down every time we took a bite. We took a spoon, put it in our mouth. Everybody put their fork down. Then you had to chew it like 20 times and then pick it back up. Oh, my God. But his point was, you got to chew your food completely. A lot of people eat too fast. And then I mentioned it in a different way before. Don't be snacking, don't be grazing. But the golden rule is have a good appetite. Don't eat when you're not hungry. This is a big mistake. I always tell people, just like sex, don't have it until you're ready. Don't eat food until you're ready. Don't cook the bread until it's hot. The oven's hot. It's all the same. You need at least 3 hours between meals. And if you're overweight or kapha person, you could put it off 6, 7 hours. Snacking is always a bad idea, except for fruit, because fruit doesn't have fat, so you don't use any bile. It's not protein, so you don't use any stomach acids, and a lot of it has its own ability to its own enzymes, and it just kind of self-digests. There's no effort to digest fruit. I mean, there's a few exceptions, but avocado, for example. But mostly fruits is not burdening your digestive system. But the snacking is always a problem and a real weight gainer. And now, a few more rules. We got more rules to go. Eat the heaviest meal in the middle of the day when your digestion's the strongest. And a lightest meal should be the dinner, because you don't, and the morning meal should be the easiest to digest, like the warm porridge and things like that. Warm, easy to digest. You need to eat in the morning for most people, unless you're overweight and you're coughing and you're not hungry. You can put it off. Nobody should follow any, you have to have 3 meals a day thing, because if you're overweight and kapha, you can just do 2 meals a day. And if you're really thin and depleted vata, you can do 4 meals a day. But you still need the gaps between the meals. But anyway, the rule is biggest meal in the middle of the day, like the old siesta, and then you can take a little rest. The lightest meal in the evening, and the morning meal should be the easiest to digest. And Ayurveda hates leftovers and reheated food. They call it dead food. So every food should be made fresh every day. They just hate reheated food and leftovers. And you should be liberal with the spices, ginger, black pepper, cumin, coriander, Western spices, sage, rosemary, thyme. I put like a Mediterranean spice on everything. And the spice helps you to digest your food. There was a reason these spices were cherished for so many years. Now, one more thing is that the order in which you eat the food is very important. The protein, the heavy thing is always at the end. If you're going to have like a little salad, little raw salad, that's first. Then any cooked vegetables or vegetable soup or steamed vegetables is second. Then any breads and grains, and then the protein. Because I mean, it's the same for like, say you're gonna have pasta. I remember when I had kids, I had pasta and you have salad. If you give them the pasta first, they don't eat the salad. You give them the salad first while they're hungry and they can eat this salad. It's, raw vegetables are hard to digest, but if you're really hungry and you got all that, you haven't been snacking for 3 or 4 hours, you can eat the salad. But the salad doesn't fill you up, so you still want the pasta. So, and then after that, you can eat the meatballs. But the idea is you eat the easiest to digest foods first, and then the heaviest foods last. And so you're eating your protein last, your animal protein or your beans, and you may feel full. You're like, okay, I've had enough because you already had some little salad, you had some raw vegetables, you had your chapatis or your grains, and now you're eating your final protein, and that you won't eat too much. You'll stop because that's the last thing you eat. Now, there's many little bad food combining things that are just specifically bad, like milk and banana. This is way too heavy and causes fermentation. Another really heavy one. A lot of these are just heavy, like meat and cheese. This is bad. Fish and milk, which I mentioned, and Ayurveda says it's toxic, it's toxic. And fruit and yogurt, completely incompatible. Beans and cheese, this is a super gassy, bloating combination. So these are like the common ones. And a few more tips, and we'll end it here. Chew thoroughly. Only eat when hungry, which I mentioned. Never have cold food, which I said. Avoid snacking at all between meals. Only if you're really hungry, have some fruit. Sit quietly for a few minutes before eating, and walk slowly after the meal. Never lie down after you eat. You eat, and then you can just go like walk around the block. Like my teacher in India, all these people are waiting for him. All these patients are there. And then his staff come, oh, lunch, right on time. He doesn't care. His whole office is full of people, big line waiting for him outside. He just strolls out into another room. We have a big old meal there. And then afterwards, with all these people waiting, he's been in practice 40 years. You get used to all these people waiting for you. And then he just walks out the back door, and we just walk around the block one time, and then he comes right back in the front door. And they're like, everybody's standing up. Oh, Guruji, where you been? He was relaxing, eating slowly, and then took a walk around the block. So that's good digestion. And then while he's going during the day, he just gets little bowls of fruit from his staff. Got to keep him going. When you do like 20, 30 appointments a day like he does, you need that lunch break. And you got to you got to digest it right. So I hope this helped you, and I would follow all these first and these guidelines before you do anything crazy like taking digestive enzymes, taking vitamins, or doing candida cleanses and all these things. Just follow these food combining guidelines. Get rid of this smoothie. Which is the worst. It's cold fruit and vegetables, and now everybody's dumping yogurt. They were putting goji berries in for a long time. Now goji berries are kind of out, which they're a nightshade. They're inflammatory. But now they're putting in mushrooms. That's the new fad. So now they're throwing in mushrooms in there with the fruit, with the vegetables. And don't forget the protein powder so you can have lots of muscles. And they're throwing it all in together and blending it all up and drinking it cold. It's just a disaster. So just cancel out your nut snacking, your smoothies, these are the big ones. Okay, well, I hope that helped you. Follow these guidelines, and you will find your digestion is stronger. You have less gas, less bloating, more energy, and you'll be in a better position to do an appointment with me because I won't have to tell you all this stuff. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any more serious health conditions, feel free to contact me. I'm Kabir Southwick, Ayurvedic doctor and Ayurvedic pharmacist, and doing Zoom appointments worldwide, and happy to help you with all your health issues with my line of herbal remedies available on herbmanteas.com. Thank you very much.